Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from beautiful Puerto Rico. This is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha. Welcome to the show, and welcome to these beautiful gardens. Look at these giant sapotes growing right here. Can you see these? These taste just like pumpkin pies when they're ripe, and this is wild ginger. Look at this.
Look at David Attleborough over here.
Yeah, it's John Muir himself going through. Anyway, I'm here in Puerto Rico because it's me and my wife's anniversary, 17 years, and yeah, it's our anniversary, and it's my daughter's spring break, and it's so interesting. We, in the material world, we make plans for happiness, and there's always like, our making plans for happiness is the biggest cause of distress. Like so many foul-ups happened already on the trip. But I'm sort of glad.
That's why we had to miss yesterday, right?
That's why I had to miss yesterday. Sorry about that. If you're listening to this on Facebook, welcome. We do this every day, but sometimes we miss a day. So I guess that's not every day, but for the most part, it's every day. But today is Q&A day, questions and answers day. On your spiritual journey, you get questions. That's normal. People write their questions in. You can do it as much as you like. You can send it to wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. We got people like Harshal Gore. This guy writes about 5 questions a day to us. We got like question masters. And then we got people who never write questions. They feel like they don't want to burden us. We love your questions. We love it. We love Harshal Gore. Do we have any Harshal Gore questions today?
Not today. He sent one in. We
do.
didn't include it this week. Maybe we'll get
He is
to
a
it next
regular, and we didn't include it. We're saying, sorry, Harshal, you're going too much. We got to back off a little. So anyway. I'm in a corporate hotel, which I can't stand, but I found a gardener whom I love, and I fell in love with this guy. And we just talk about plants and fruits all day. So I'm going to walk around during this entire interview and pick various fruits. What do you think about that?
All right.
Let's start.
Okay.
I can't read it because I'm doing this all on my iPhone and my earbud today.
Okay. Well, the first question is for the two of us, but Mara's going to read it.
Yeah. So the first question is from Vayu from Australia. He says, I would love to know what Raghunath admires in Kaustubha and vice versa. It is really sweet how they interact. And because that is a major part of Bhakti, it would be so interesting to hear the answer to this question.
No, this is an invitation to the love fest.
Yeah, you know, this is sweet because I grew up in a culture where we put each other down. Truthfully, it's one of the reasons why I got into Bhakti, because I started hating what I was becoming in the material world, which you're always trying to criticize and cut somebody down, and we call them, put downs. And in Bhakti, it's the opposite. It's like put ups. You're appreciating. You're almost like going over the top, appreciating. It's by your mercy. Oh, no, Prabhu. It's by your mercy. And it's like put ups. Let me get the dust of your lotus feet. No, let me get the dust. Don't touch my feet. They're contaminated. Let me touch your feet. So it's the opposite of material culture. It's just cruel and rude, and spiritual culture is so high. And so I would love to start this one because I have great appreciation for Kaustubha. First of all, I consider Kaustubha a stiti muni, which is a verse from the Bhagavad-Gita. Means one who's fixed in steady mind. That means no matter what's coming and going, he's always just sort of steady. He's riding that samadhi right down the middle. And because I tend to be a little nutty, emotional, all over the place, like a reckless driver, I appreciate Kaustubha's steadiness in his spiritual life. He's always been like that to me. I've always had that beautiful relationship with him. If I need someone to turn to, he's there. So that's for you, Stita D. Kaustubha. Steady living that stamati. Living that stamati. Hey, stamati. Hey, stamati. That's what That's one thing. That's one of the many, many leaves on the banyan tree of Kaustubha's great qualities.
Oh, that's so kind. Okay,
we can stop right there.
Yeah, let's stop right there. No, because I got to respond to you. I got a list.
You'll have to.
Raghu. I got a list. First one is Raghunath has given his life to the service of truth, you know, and to the service of others. You know, he was like, this whole, you know, he was in a band. He had some following, and you know, when you get in a band, most guys that get in a successful band become completely degraded, right? It's just like,
I tried.
Yeah, but usually, you know, it's just all becomes about drugs and sex, and you get lost in the fame, and the ego just kind of skyrockets. People that get a little fame generally, like, even if they're good people, they get like kind of skewed by it in some way. But Raghunath, he was just really like, he's given up. He kind of he said, I don't want that with my life, even though the door is opening up for it. I want my life to be about truth. I want my life to be about service, and he's fully given his life to that. Another thing about Raghunath that I admire, he
only one, Prabhu. You can only
he
only
never
say
said
one.
that. He never said that.
He said one thing about each other.
Just stop the stop like the required, like trying to hold me back, because I just got a few things that I'm going to read them. It's going to take longer the more you resist. He respects great souls, you know, and he relates to them with humility, which is just a beautiful cultural thing that, again, you know, is very missing in our society. He's dharmic, right? Raghunath is dharmic. He's willing to do the right thing even when it's difficult to do. If it's in business life or family life or relationship life, if it means apologizing. When he recognizes that this is the right thing to do, he doesn't rationalize. He doesn't try to. He'll do it. You know, he'll do the right thing. Rare quality.
Oh, Prabhu.
Another one, got a great sense of humor. Everybody knows Raghunath has a great sense of humor. He's a lot of fun. He keeps life fun. He uplifts others with his sense of humor. I've seen him when, like, I've been on pilgrimages when, like, sometimes you're on pilgrimage and everything starts to go like downhill. You know, it's like a couple people can't handle the austerity. Maybe a few things didn't go quite as planned. Some negativity starts to spread throughout the ranks, you know. And Raghunath can just, like, with his, you know, sense of humor and enthusiasm, can just kind of put the whole thing on his back and, like, lift the whole thing up, which is an amazing thing to see. And I'll just say one more. I could go on much longer, but one more. Raghunath is a Rasika Bhakta. He's like, he has a genuine taste for bhakti. He relishes the flavor of bhakti. He loves Vrindavan. You know, he loves Krishna's pastimes in Bhagavatam. He loves Ramayana. He loves Mahabharata. He's got like a genuine taste and enthusiasm for him that's infectious. And
Hearing
that's
you
what
speak about bhakti is giving me bhakti, actually.
It's giving me bhakti. It's going back and forth. And so that, you know, that's a great quality in a friend. You want to find people who they don't, you know, they're not, you know, their attachment is for those beautiful aspects of the bhakti culture. When you have friends like that, then you're naturally pulled in that direction, and spiritual life becomes easy. I could go on longer, but I'm just going to leave it there.
Kaustubha's glorification of me is only sharing more about himself.
Oh,
he has the tendency to find a piece of gold in a pile of filth. That's one of your great qualities, Prabhu.
Oh, come
You're finding a great piece of gold in some filth. You're kind. I appreciate your graciousness. Let's go on. Let's go on.
Now we can move on. Now we've said our piece. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Now you've got a question for me, but because you don't have the questions with you, I think Mara's going to read it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Mara, you're on.
Okay, the next question is from Jason Stice. There's a lot of questions.
Stice.
Jason a lot of questions
too.
Yeah, he's good. It's pronounced Stice.
Stice.
Jason Stice. Okay.
Stice, yeah.
In his purport to the Bhagavad-Gita 15:12, Srila Prabhupada states, that one should simply try to understand that the splendor of the sun, the splendor of the moon, and the splendor of electricity or fire are coming from God. In such a conception of life, the beginning of Krishna consciousness, lies a great deal of advancement for the conditioned soul. Here's my question. What does he mean by understanding? Is it the mere acquisition of knowledge and all I need to do is accept it? Or is it realized knowledge? What are the characteristics of realized knowledge? How do I know I haven't deluded myself into thinking I understand something more than I actually do? Also, is it helpful or problematic if I engage my imagination to try to support my understanding? Like if I mentally picture the sun, etc., all billowing forth from God? Is it a mental concoction if my heart is in the right place? Sorry for my Costanza-esque battery of questions.
We love
It was
George
a little
Costanza around here.
Costanza-esque, but we love Costanza. We
Yeah,
love
we do.
George Costanza.
So this is a really excellent question. I like where he goes with this. I think even Raghunath may have a similar question. Like, how do I know I'm not just being deluded, right? Like, how do I know what I'm believing is truth?
Yeah. Yes.
He refers to this commentary from Prabhupada where he says one should simply try to understand. And so let's talk about it. What does it mean to know, or what does it mean to understand? One thing that when you look at this from the Vedic perspective, it's not necessarily the person, that has the, let's say, the strongest brain capacity, what we would call, IQ, right? It's just because someone these are people in Mensa and so on, they put them through IQ tests. And those tests determine just like how effectively your brain works. But that's not a person that necessarily knows the truth. They don't necessarily, like, for instance, know how to find true happiness in life. And so to know, it's something different. It comes by different way. And within the Vedic perspective, when you talk about knowledge, and I'm not going to get into the whole thing right now, but it means understanding the knower, what is known, but it also means understanding what is the process, or what is the means to knowledge, what is the means to know.
Mm.
And the Bhagavad Gita speaks a lot about this. One thing that we should understand, and before I go deeper into that, just to share just a bit about, like, for instance, we doubt, like, there's information provided in these texts, for instance. And you might look at that and say, that makes a lot of sense, but how do I know that it's true? And then someone's going to come along with is it by philosophical arguments that we know something is true? Is it through debate that we know something's true? Is it the person with the highest IQ going to get it right and everybody else is going to get it wrong? But sometimes this is a real important point, that material attachments cloud our knowledge. So true knowledge grows as we let go of our material attachments. Here's the tattoo. Material attachments cloud knowledge. Material detachment facilitates knowledge. Right? Sometimes, like, you know someone. Probably everyone's been in this position and known people in this position at one point in their life. Someone falls in love with someone else, right? And everybody knows this is a mess. This is not the right person. This person's going to just drag you down, ruin your life. They've got a whole history of it, right? You can see it as plain as day. The whole world can see it, but the person that's fallen in love, they developed an attachment. And even you hold that whole history up to them, they've got a way to rationalize it out of it and so on. They can't see what everybody else sees. They can't know what everybody else knows, right? Because their material attachments have clouded their knowledge. So the Gita's going to say, Krishna's going to say in the Bhagavad Gita, there's a lot of good stuff, but material detachment, right, grows out of the mode of goodness. The mode of goodness, sattva guna, means I'm content. When we're content, it means we're letting go of our material attachments. And Krishna will say this about, in the 14th chapter, he says some great stuff. He says in text 14:6, sattvam nirmalamvat prakashakam, that the mode of goodness, the sattva guna, being purer than the other modes, is illuminating. And it will also say, Sattvat sanjayate jnanam. From the mode of goodness, from sattva guna, real knowledge develops. Right? So to develop knowledge, to see things as they are, when Prabhupada said in that purport, just try to see it. Prabhupada's saying, that whole chapter is saying, try to understand that behind everything, there's a person that's directing it all, that this all has meaning, and that you're never alone, and that everything is moving in this world by a divine arrangement, the sun, the moon, etc., etc. Try to understand it. To try to understand it doesn't mean just like study a book to try to understand it. There are books to study to help us understand it for sure. But it also means you have to adopt a lifestyle. You have to adopt a sattvic lifestyle that's going to open your eyes. It's going to free you from all that's clouding you from accepting it. So in the 13th chapter, Krishna speaks about the means to knowledge, how one acquires knowledge, the virtues that facilitate knowledge. If you look at chapter 13, text 8 through 12, I'm not going to list them all. It's a big, long list. But for instance, amanitvam, humility, adambitvam, pridelessness, ahimsa, nonviolence, kshanti, tolerance, arjavam, simplicity, saucham, cleanliness, arteshu, ashakti, sense control regarding the senses, right? Being detached from the senses. These are just some of the things that is this kind of lifestyle, is this kind of integrity in one's lifestyle and purity in one's lifestyle that will manifest truth and understanding. And you'll be able to see things as they are. You'll be able to understand. One person looks at the sun and how the way the planets revolve around it, and the changing of the seasons. And like Raghunath is right now, like in nature, seeing the growth of plants and how the fruits come from, and they're seeing, obviously, clearly there's a designer behind this that's tying this all together. And another person, even with a sky-high IQ, doesn't see it at all, right? It's this lifestyle of purity that's going to help us understand it. And then there's another thing listed in that list that comes in that Bhagavad-Gita for the virtues that facilitate knowledge, and that is acharya upasanam. Now, upasana literally means to get real close to, but generally the word is translated as worship even. And acharya upasana means approaching with humility and genuine respect the acharya, a great person who you can see their living truth, that all good qualities are manifesting from them, that they've learned how to become happy, that they've learned not to be controlled by their mind and senses, that they're moving through this world with grace and all the good qualities. So this, brings us to like a really important question. Is there's that section in the Mahabharata that where Yudhishthira has to answer all these very difficult, puzzling, vague questions, and he has to answer them perfectly to save the lives of his brothers. And
Yagya. No.
Yaksha.
It's called Yaksha. Oh man, I can't think.
Yeah, what is it called? The Yaksha something or other.
Pragyash.
Yeah.
I think so. Correct me, Krishna Drew. Yaksha Pragyash. The questions of the Yakshas.
Of the Yaksha. So one of the questions, and just imagine, like your loved one's life depends on this, and you're asked this question, you got to get it right. What is the path? That was the question. What is the path? And this is a very famous verse, right? But here was his argument. Here was his answer. He says, dry arguments are inconclusive. And when you say, what is the path? In other words, like, what is truth? Right. What is not? He says, dry arguments are inconclusive. That's right. one thing that's not going to work. A great personality whose opinion does not differ from others is not considered a great sage. Simply by studying the Vedas, which are variegated, one cannot come to the right path by which Dharma is understood. The solid truth of Dharma is hidden in the heart of an unadulterated, self-realized person. Consequently, as the sacred texts confirm, one should accept whatever progressive path the great souls advocate. Right? Mahajano yena gatasa panta. That look at the people in the world that seem to understand spirituality and life, and they're happy and they're kind and they're intelligent and they're pure and they're not making all the mistakes that everyone else is making. and it's from them that you'll understand. So he's saying that debate can open one's mind, but it's not sufficient to know. You know, even the sacred texts in their own are not sufficient because people interpret them in so many different ways, and different texts are meant for different people under different circumstances. He even says even the rishis are insufficient because generally one debater kind of like is you tear down the others to establish your point, and then someone else comes and tears down their point. But here's the idea. You observe how wisdom plays out in the life of great souls. And then you adopt the specific focus and practices that they advocate. And with that, you know, you observe the world through the lens of their teachings and you reflect on what they've shared. And then knowledge, free from doubt, will be generated through this process. You know, you'll see things as they are. I want to just read a little bit from the Bhagavad-Gita, from that 15th chapter, because
Loving this answer, Kaustubha.
Oh, good.
I feel like you're so right on with this.
Okay, well, this is great stuff because he mentioned the 15th chapter. Now, this is Krishna here. He's describing the bondage and the confusion that we're moving through the world with. He says, the living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts, but due to conditioned life, they're struggling very hard with their senses and their minds. He says the living entity in the material world carries their different conceptions, right? These different impressions in their mind from one body to another as the air carries aromas. Thus, they take on one kind of body after quitting their body, and then they take on another. Wow, that's really something. How do I know it's true, right? Then he says this. He says, the foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit their body, nor can they understand what sort of body they enjoy under the spell of the modes of nature. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. You can see it, right? Just like, you know, someone falls in love with someone, they can't see the problem, but everyone else can see it. You might not be able to prove it to them with arguments, but you can see it, you know.
Right.
He says the endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization can see all this clearly, but those whose minds are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, though they may try. And then comes the verse that he says, and all the things that like a wise person can see because they're living in Sattvaguna, they're hearing from the right sources, they're following in the footsteps of the great souls. He says, the splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of the whole world, comes from me. And the splendor of the moon and the splendor of fire also come from me. I enter into each planet, and by my energy they stay in orbit. I become the moon, and thereby supply the juice of life to all the vegetables. Not only that, he also helps you digest, right? I'm the fire of digestion in the body of all living entities. And I join with the air of life, outgoing and incoming, to digest the 4 kinds of foodstuffs. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas, I am to be known indeed. I'm the compiler of Vedanta, and I'm the knower of the Vedas. And so it's such a, you know, he just goes on and on like this. The things that someone will see is obvious when you're living the right lifestyle, when you're hearing from the right people, and you're following it, you're observing it, you're reflecting on it. True knowledge arises in the mind and the heart of that person, and you can recognize it in their character and the behavior. So that would be, you know, there's one other kind of nuance to this question. He said, what if in my mind I kind of picture this? What did he say, Mary? Like I kind of like
mental concoction.
Yeah, like should I picture in my mind that here's, you know, God and everything's coming from him and so on, you know, or is that just mental speculation, which isn't helpful? You know, if it might be helpful, you know, if it's the point is speculation is okay if it's in line with what the Shastra is saying, but it shouldn't go out of line with it, you know. So it could be helpful. It may or may not be. That I'll leave it at that. But again, most importantly, let's try to live a sattvic life because we know that knowledge is going to grow through that. It's going to be generated through that. Look at the means to knowledge in the 13th chapter of the Gita, text 8 through 12. Then live the sattvic life. Inquire from the Shastra, from the sacred teachings, but also, and really importantly, is see how it plays out in the life of great souls. You know, and from those people that actually really get it, then you can get your best direction following in their footsteps. All right, I'll leave it there. And I hope, Jason, I
Well,
hope
some
that's
very
helpful.
important notes here, Kaustubha.
You're taking
The four
notes?
types of the four
Four
types of
types.
foodstuffs.
That would be
Let's not
bitten, licked, just drinked, and sucked.
licked. I was gonna quiz Mara.
Oh, okay.
You know, it's so funny. You know what I loved about the Vedic teachings is they analyze everything.
They do.
Everything is analyzed right down to the types of foods. Like, you know, there's 4 types of foods.
Obviously.
That which can be eat, drank, licked, and sucked. I always say, I remember when I was a new monk and reading that, I was like, what do they lick? What food is licked? And I was like, did they had lollipops back in the old days? What is licked? Can you think of one?
Licking food. I mean, cows, they got the salt lick, you know?
Salt. I know that's I don't know. Licked. Okay, first one, if we could put a licked food that's from the old days, not like a lollipop. Didn't
Old
have
school licked
lollipops
food
then.
we're looking for.
Yeah,
All
that
right,
was a great point. But wait,
Yeah.
before we start the question, I just want you to notice, Kaustubha, this is one of our favorite trees. This is a
What you got?
chigu tree. Can you see that?
Get out.
Can you see the chigus growing right above my head here? Here's some chigus right here.
Are they ripe?
These ones aren't, but I did find one ripe one yesterday, and I ate it. It was wonderful.
Did you offer it first?
I didn't offer it. I just ate it
Raghunath,
like a pig.
that's Krishna's favorite fruit.
Didn't offer it.
Man,
I didn't
come
offer
on,
it.
man.
Felt
Gotta
like
offer it.
gotta offer the food. Okay, sorry about that. I wouldn't.
Sorry.
But they're called sapadillas in Spanish, but
All right.
chigus in Hindi.
I saw
Okay,
them
what
in
do you got
Colombia.
for me, Kaustubha?
This
You
is
saw
coming
Colombia
from
too, yeah.
This is coming from Ben S via email. He asks.
Ben, all right.
He asks, first of all, let me offer my respectful obeisances to all of you for continually enriching my life with spiritual insight. Oh, that's so kind of you to say, Ben.
You are sweet.
Even in days I find myself feeling rushed or just going through the motions, I find some deep insight into my situation with what you have to say. Through joining the Discord community, I was made aware of a local Bhakti center here that opened up in Portland.
Let's explain the Discord community for those who don't know.
When you
if you're on our
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Well, if you're on
you
like this is a community sponsored podcast, so people go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages. Patreon's patreon.com/wisdom of the sages, and they sign up and they give a monthly donation. It could be at $1, $108, $4, $12, $20, whatever you want to give. You give. Then there's a whole inner secret community. It's sort of like those secret societies they have, you know. You can also join.
Okay.
And so anyway, we have a whole, not only classes, workshops, yoga classes regularly, we also have a community that talks on a Discord thread, and we talk about all interesting
Different
things.
threads are there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, he's on the Discord thread.
Okay.
Thank you for joining and supporting us, by the way, Ben.
Okay, so he's been going to this center in Portland. He says, I've been attending weekly kirtans and helping serve in whatever form I can. At the same time, I've quit all intoxicants, and I am 1 month into living a cleaner life. Daily asana, morning run, watching what I eat. See, he's living that Suffolk life. He's taking up knowledge is going to grow out of this, right?
Knowledge will grow from it, yeah.
So he says, my question is in regards to keeping a balanced spiritual life. Now, this is a good one for you, Raghunath, because he's a musician. Okay. He says, I love making music, and I have dove into making beats on my computer for rap. At times, I struggle with wanting to continue making beats, seeing as a lot of that industry is centered around Maya or illusion. Yet I love the culture and music that surrounds hip-hop. In one sense, I feel a strong pull towards bhakti, but also want to find a way to incorporate that into my love for hip-hop without it coming off as egotistical or tacky in a sense. Any insight would be helpful.
Beautiful question. And first, I want to give a shout out to the Portland Bhakti Center. It's another ex-hardcore guy who started that up, and he's a listener. And
Cool.
I think he's coming to India with me. Govardhan. I think his name's Govardhan. We never hung out together, but sweet guy. We've had some exchanges. And that's a great question. I've got news for you, Ben. Tag, you're it. Lord Chaitanya is tagging you. Divinity is tagging you to do something magical with your talents. We have talent. He says, like, the hip hop culture is filled with Maya. I got news for you, Ben. The entire world is filled with Maya. The entire world. The catering industry is filled with Maya. You know, you could be a librarian and be filled with Maya. You can make movies. It's filled with Maya. Everything is filled with Maya. And it's our jobs to be like these alchemists or these almost like these archaeologists. We're digging into something, and we are finding the sweetness in it. And how can these things be transformed? How can you transform the lead or the mercury to gold? And that's what we do in Bhakti Yoga. We take what we got and we engage it in service, and it becomes purified. The harmonium is Maya, isn't it? It's just a piece of wood. It's just a piece of dead matter. But when you use that harmonium for when you get off of the ego platform and you use that to glorify divinity and God and kirtan, then that same thing becomes transcendentalized. So you are tagged to take your talent, and you know what? You're gonna, and I fully trust that you have insight and inspiration and intelligence to do something great with it. And there's cool people out there like MC Yogi, who's been on our show, and our friend Sri Kala,
Chaitanya.
These guys, people are great out there doing their things, and doing it in a spiritual offering. Now there might be a time where you say, you know what, this is too much. I can't do this. It's actually bringing out the worst in me. And at that time, you got to say, not good. And because there's something about a culture that gets too much and it triggers us, that maybe our Maya self loved it. As we purify ourselves, we don't like it anymore. I know a guy who's really into martial arts, really into it. And then on a spiritual path, he said, I'm giving it all up. I said, why would you give it up? You're good at it and it's good. You can protect people. He goes, I'm doing it, and I have always been doing it for the wrong reasons. And I thought that was so beautiful and insightful, to give up something you're good at because you realize it's only triggered. So there are people that recognize that, and they come to this realization, this is not good for me, and it's not helping me or anybody else. But at the same time, I did it for years. I did it, I was in a band and I did punk rock with spiritual messages, and it helped me in my spiritual life. It kept me like connected to a spiritual community. It kept me a brahmachari for the most of my time. And I felt inspired and enlivened, and it touched the hearts of other people. So I say, keep doing what you're doing in a spiritual way. It's inspirational.
But be careful.
Touch some hearts. But be careful. Always be careful. Right. It's a dangerous world. Be careful. Right. But Tag, you're it. Next question.
Next, okay.
No, I meant Tag, you're it. Ben, but now Mara, Tag, you're it. Ask the question for Kaustubha, please.
All right.
Oh, by the way, before you do that, Mara,
yeah,
we have on the message board here our friend Nityananda Chandra has given us the answer, authoritative answer from the Gita Bhushana, Srila Baladev Vidyabhushana's commentary on Bhagavad-Gita on the 4 types of food stuff.
Ooh, let's hear.
So food that is chewed is such as he gives the example of chickpeas or bread.
Okay, chickpeas or bread.
Sipped items, he lists soup and porridge as examples.
Soup and porridge, sipped. Okay.
Sucked items, he gives examples like a ripe mango or sugar cane.
Yeah, you suck them.
Okay. But,
I'm agreeing with each one.
But licked items, he gives the examples of milk rice. I don't know what that is.
Milk rice. Yeah, like sweet rice, maybe?
I don't know. You lick sweet rice?
Lick that? Yeah, you do. You stick your tongue in there and lick it.
He gave another example, raw sugar, like gur, right? Like one of those, like one of those maple syrup, maple candies or something.
Maple
sugar
candies,
just kind of lick on it, right?
Lick it, yeah.
He lists honey as well.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Baladev Vidyabhushana, who was one of the great masters, yoga acharyas in our lineage, and that's what he used. Thank you for that. Nityananda. Okay, Mara.
All right.
Take note of that, Mara.
So
He's quick, huh? Nityananda's quick. You got to be like, get going. Yeah.
The next question's from Uddhava Sandesh, the skate monk.
Oh, he's a great guy.
Follow Uddhava Sandesh, the skate monk, on Instagram.
Skate monk.
All right. Kaustubha, is it possible to hear too much? I listen to so many classes each day that I'm beginning to wonder if there's a point at which hearing becomes unproductive. I know the goal is to always keep the transcendental vibration going, but sometimes it feels like it just goes in one ear and out the other. Thus, I'm unable to remember most of what I hear, what to say of actually processing and internalizing it. Would it be better if I heard less and took more time to process what I do hear? Or should I just keep hearing and know that it's purifying me, at least on some level?
Yeah. You know, this, I like the question. It's not just hearing. but it's hearing and reflecting on what we hear. You know, we need to hear. We need to hear regularly. We need to hear this wisdom on a daily basis. That's why Raghunath, that's where the whole wisdom of the sages thing grew out on, is because we need to do this daily, you know. But then you need to also reflect on it. You need to give your mind some space to reflect to. So, you know, it's interesting. I find that just due to, I assume, due to the world that I'm living in, you know, and all the bizarre stuff that my mind's been exposed to and continues to be exposed to on a daily basis, that my attention span is rather short. You know, it's hard for me to, sometimes I can do it where I sit down and I study for like an hour and a half straight, like concentrated. But usually I have trouble doing that. And lately what I do when I want to like absorb my mind in hearing for like an extended time, I switch it up. Like I do 20 or to 30 minutes with one book that's like deep philosophical reading. Then I flip it up and I read something also spiritual for like another 20 minutes or 30 minutes that's like lighter. And then I flip it up and I go to the next thing. And in this way, an hour and a half passes and it was just like, it was easy. You know, my mind stayed engaged. So if we're just hearing and our mind's not engaged in it, it's not, the real effect of it isn't taking place. The mind needs to be absorbed in it. You know, so better that you're hearing and some of it's sticking even if you're not fully processing it. But the idea is that the mind needs to be absorbed in it. And you're going to find also that, you know, I'm hearing, then I need to step away from it and contemplate it, reflect on it, give yourself some space, you know, and engage that mind in ways that are not necessarily hearing, but that are like conducive, you know, whether it's, you know, being in nature and reflecting on what you've heard while you're in nature, whether it's associating with nice people, whether it's just chanting, whatever it may be, mix it up, but make sure all the things that you're putting in the mix are positive and beneficial. And hopefully that will really help you process what you're hearing better and it'll grow, you know, it'll take root and grow. So that's what I have to say about that. Hope that's helpful. Uddhava Sandesh.
Great answer. Great answer.
You look angelic there, Raghunath. You got a halo. You're in the Garden of Eden there or something like that.
That's my real halo, actually. That's my
Is
real
it?
halo that comes with my head. Well, I hit a certain point of enlightenment where just a halo started coming. I can't figure it out. Even when it's nighttime, I can't get good sleep anymore because that halo is always glowing. I was sitting under a tree and meditating. All of a sudden, boom!
I think that gardener.
I am
Hold
God.
Hold it. I was about to say maybe that gardener is like some special soul.
God.
Okay. You ready?
That gardener is a special soul. You know, when you start working with plants that much, something happens to you.
Yeah,
this guy is
special.
Suffolk,
right? Like we said.
I'm going to walk you over to the lemon drop tree. Let me check this. It's up there.
That sounds like
and
something
you start this tree. Yeah, the lemon drop tree.
Yeah,
it is actually.
But like we're saying, from the mode of witness. Are you listening to me? Every time I start talking, you just keep going. Can you hear
me? I'm listening,
okay.
But my mind is focused on. Look what I'm walking into right here. You see this? You see these?
I see some trees. Oh,
lemon
drops. There? Lemon drops.
No, lemon drops.
What is a lemon drop? Did you offer that?
No, I didn't.
We're gonna
offer it now,
man.
I just ate it. Just ate it. Didn't offer it.
Then you just ate down the whole sin.
Community. I apologize.
You just ate a lump of sin right there. It's killing you right now. It's dragging you down.
Now this one's right. Shri Krishna, Shri Krishna, Shri Krishna.
Yeah, that's a pretty weak offering.
I offered that one. It was much sweeter.
Okay. All right. We got a question, a sweet question for you now. Chew on this. You ready? Okay. This comes from Holly.
Yep.
Via email.
Holly Ball.
Is it? I'm not sure about
Holly
that.
Ball, I love her.
It's coming from Holly. That much we know.
From one of the many Hollies out there.
Here it goes. You ready? Concentrate.
Okay, come on.
Please discuss.
How to mango.
I said concentrate, not on the mango. Concentrate on the question.
Okay.
Ready? Please,
ready.
Please discuss how to know that I'm not scared into believing this because of my experiences in relationship with God and religion. Up to a few years ago or so, I was afraid to even question my faith or anything to do with God or Jesus, even though I didn't understand why. How do I know I'm not just believing this out of fear that my old limiting beliefs are trying to tie me to Krishna out of fear of not knowing what may or may not happen after death? Is the word God or Krishna what is scaring me into not knowing what I believe? I am a spiritual soul, and I have been for my entire life. Wisdom of the Sages is really opening my eyes to what that means. But something is bothering me somewhere about this fear. What am I afraid of? Is it that there are so many beliefs and religions? How do I know I have personally found the correct one? Love is what I have always believed. That is what I feel every day since I've started listening to Wisdom of the Sages. Thank you for all of what you do. My mind is more controlled since this past year with Wisdom of the Sages.
How beautiful.
Fear,
What a
Raghu.
beautiful. There's a lot of questions in there, and I think they're great questions. I wouldn't let it paralyze you. I think whenever I get, especially this last part of it, when you feel like, how do I? There's so many religions. Why am I picking this particular religion? Why am I picking this particular spiritual path? I love that question, and that comes up with me a lot. You start to think about all the multitude of religions over the centuries that have existed, and why is this particular? That makes me zoom out and not get caught up in a Hare Krishna box. And I think it's important for us to see ourselves as spiritual beings, or else we create this us and them world, which we've created right now. Really, it's us versus the world, and I don't like to see it like that. I don't like when people say, "What are you?" where they're trying to put me in a box so they can try to like digest it and figure me out. If someone says, "What are you?" like, "What is your spiritual?" I just say I'm a spirit soul, and I'm trying to find truth. I like to zoom out, and I don't like to say I am a Hare Krishna, because I'm not a Hare Krishna. I'm a spirit soul. I'm a spirit soul, and I'm on a quest for learning truth, hearing truth, seeing people who have imbibed truth, and taking what I have and trying to apply it in my life. Just like you answered in your early question, like, what is the absolute truth? What was your answer to that? It was the whole thing about finding people who are living it and trying to apply it, and I can't do justice that you did. So I always feel like I'm a spirit soul, and there's a lot of illusion out there, and I'm trying to apply truth. And I will associate with people who can give me that truth. And don't freak out by that. Move forward with that. You're not, and this was another part of her question, how do I know it's not just fear that when I die? We're not using that tactic. As far as at least the people I've hung out with in my spiritual circles, they don't use the fear of hell on me, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work with me, that type of threat, that type of sadistic God's going to punish you. That doesn't work with me finding love in God. I practice bhakti because it gives me pleasure now. I don't like when I'm disconnected. And I find great pleasure when I'm connected, when I'm around people who are connected, when I'm around people who are thoughtful and who are deep and who are conscious and who see themselves as part of something bigger. To me, that's like the highest type of joy. Doing spiritual activities. Those are like being in kirtan, sitting in meditation, finding natural places to chill out. You know what I mean? To me, this is sort of like a very high type of existence in the now. It's not for some fear that I'm going to get skinned alive at the time of death if I don't worship some deity. That's not love of God. That's like getting manipulated into love, which isn't love at all. So I'm with you 100%. And I think that it's super important to understand that my daughter just came here and I lost my train of thought. Sit down.
It's super important to understand what? What is so super important to
understand? So anyway, I think it's really important to understand that, to see yourselves in the bigger picture and not with I'm in this little tiny sliver of a religious cult. I don't see myself like that. I don't think it's not necessarily healthy. Now, as you imbibe truth, you're going to want to find a way to fall in love with God deeper. And I find this community can really explain what God is. And that's why I was even more attracted to it. That idea of Krishna as the young cowherd boy, etc. That doesn't mean I find other people at ends with what that doesn't mean I don't find other people who are Christians, or I don't find them problematic. I just find they have a different understanding, and I can accept them and appreciate how they're moving forward on their path. When I first heard of this idea of Krishna as the young cowherd boy, as the supreme personality of Godhead, I thought that was genius. That's a genius. I'm not a mouthpiece. And I want everyone to know this right now, too. I'm not a mouthpiece.
Raghu's haunted by this. Go ahead, say what you're going to say.
This criticism on iTunes. I'm not a mouthpiece for a Hare Krishna religion. I want you to know that. I'm a mouthpiece for people finding their joy in their spiritual joy in this world, because that's an eternal joy. How you do that is up to you. But I think it's, at least for me, that's my approach with it. And that's why I could really relate your question. I didn't think it was a bad question at all. I thought it was a great, deep question, and a question that I always have to ask myself so I can be broad-minded when I speak to people, because I want to be able to speak to anybody about spiritual life. It doesn't just have to be my little community of people in an ashram. I want to be able to speak to anybody that I meet on the street about spiritual life and connect with them on their terms. Because we all have a lot in common. We're all spirit souls, and we all are, and we're all sort of lost in the material world, and we're trying to hold on to some type of truth. What do you think about that, Steve?
I thought that was just a shower of insight, just rained down on us all, Raghunath. Thank you. Hey, Sachi. And so, hey, so why don't we go ahead and take the opportunity to deal with it, right? Because you wanted to, someone wrote a review of us or something like that, and more or less, what it said is like, hey, these guys they're kind of like, they got a good thing going. It's a good show. It's interesting and they're fun and so on. But just be warned, that this is a soft sell for the Hare Krishna movement. And
as if we're getting like a kickback from the Hare Krishna movement, like I get 10% of everybody that joins the Hare Krishna movement.
Well, but this is my point. It's saying that is something like this. It's something like saying, like, say you and I were both like ex-NFL football players or something like that, right?
Sure.
And say that we started a podcast about the NFL because that's what we know about it, and that's what our passion is. That's what we're into. And then when we interviewed people, we also interviewed like NFL football players, and we just talked about, the NFL. And so then someone say, hey, beware, this is like a soft sell for the NFL. No, it's like what we're into. So that's what we're talking about, So like, we talk about bhakti. We talk about, it's ISKCON that introduced us to us and educated us into this and it continues to provide facility for us to be absorbed in this. So we're not, I don't think you'll ever find any of us saying, hey, go to this ISKCON temple and give up your rest of your life and work there and earn money for them and give your money to them or anything like that. We're saying, hey, there's a tradition of wisdom and devotion that goes back thousands of years and it's beautiful. And we've lived it in our lives, and that's what we share. And that's just, it's our passion. That's what we're into, so you can call it a soft sell for this or that, but really all we're trying to say is like, hey, there's this great tradition and we benefit from it, and maybe you can too. And that's what we do. And the people that we find,
from the Canadian Football League, you'd explain football from that vantage point. And so, we had a great time in the Canadian Football League. It was really fun. And, and then maybe you'll bring over someone from the NFL over as well. It's not like we have a criteria of who gets to come in. Bhakti is open for everybody, and traditions all over the world. Srila Prabhupada, our guru's guru, brought it over to the West. But Krishna Bhakti, Ram Bhakti, this Bhakti has been around forever. As long as there's been spirit souls, there's been people who wanted to reconnect through love, through using songs, using mantras, using cooking, using dance, etc., using culture to reconnect. And so we appreciate it wherever people get it. And if you get it from somewhere else, that's great. And all we can do is share what's in our experience. And both Kaustubha and I have a pretty broad experience. I mean, we've gone out in the world and met people from all over and appreciated them. And people from all, not only Hindu traditions, but other spiritual traditions, and have great appreciation for them. So we're not trying to sell anything to anybody except some deep type of reconnection, because we feel like that's the highest thing that anybody could offer anybody. That's it's why I love Kaustubha. I feel like he offers that to me. That's why I like teachers in my life and friends in my life, because they offer me some type of reconnection instead of just reconnection with the mundane things of this world that drag me down and make me sad. I want spiritual reconnection. I don't care where you get that from. Thank you. Had to say that.
You might even find it from a Puerto Rican gardener.
Hey, this gardener is a very high soul.
I bet he is. Okay, you know, I should have mentioned earlier, I neglected to mention, but today we will continue our Bhakti 101 classes. There's been some inquiry into this.
Oh, fantastic.
At 1 p.m. Eastern Time, both today and tomorrow, we will go for an hour and a half to 2 hours or so, something like that. We've progressed along, and today we actually really dive into the 4 paths of yoga: Ashtanga Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga.
It's all there, people.
So that's coming up. That's for if you're already signed into this, if you know our secret codes, those are the secret codes to use to get into the Zoom meeting. If not, you can write to wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com, and Mara will be happy to share those secret codes with you. I think we're just about out of time, Raghunath. You're going to be coming from the island of...
If I make it there, Vieques. Tomorrow.
My wife has been there. She says it's like it's incredibly beautiful there.
It's got a backstory.
It's got a backstory.
Okay. Yeah, we bombed it ridiculously. We did all our. I just found this out. There's like a super fun site on the island. We bombed it repeatedly when practicing for World War II. So it's got a little toxic.
All right,
it's a little toxic, but it's beautiful and toxic.
Okay, one more thing we should mention is tomorrow I will be conducting the interview, and we'll be bringing back Paramananda and Raghunath, because when we interviewed them back last June or whatever,
I thought it was just Paramananda. You didn't say you were interviewing me.
No,
I said let's bring Paramananda back.
Obviously, you were not listening at all. Your mind was completely distracted as we discussed this at length. I'm interviewing you and him. All right, and that's why I told you, hey, think of different stories and stuff like that, right? Because I'm interviewing you, Baba. And so I'm going to ask you both about stories from the road. Like last time we did
stories from the road. Okay.
Yeah, last time it was about, your time in shelter, but it kind of was like building in like how it all got started. But now I want to interview the two of you like in shelter, in this Krishna conscious hardcore band. I want to hear stories about your tours and your traveling and your experiences and the people that you met and all that kind of stuff. Story time. Okay.
All right. More of me talking, but I'm excited to hear Paramananda speak.
That will be at 8 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow morning. Right?
Okay.
All right. And now, am I supposed to be the guy that cues up the music today?
Yeah, you're the cuer. You're the DJ. Gracias, señor.
Let me see. Look at Raghu breaking out that Spanish.
I got some
like
Spanish.
Pro.
Dame mango, por favor. Dame mango. Dame chigu. Anyway, thanks everybody for joining us while Kaustubha is doing that. I want to thank everybody who's listening to us on Facebook for the first time. We do this all the time. Join us every day. And tomorrow, generally we start at 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, because Saturday and Sunday are 8 a.m. Thanks so much, everybody. Kaustubha is realizing how difficult it is to cue up the music, isn't it?
Well, if I would do it every day, I would have it down.
Yeah, you would. You would. I do it every day, and I still don't quite have it down, do I? There we go. Thanks, everybody. What?
Oh, I hear it better now. Like when it's not coming through Zoom, I got all the hand claps and everything.
Oh yeah, it's good, isn't it?